Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Couric. Maria Захарova serves as the right hand to one of the most powerful men in global politics, the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov. She is an outspoken and at times controversial player in President Putin's regime and never shy about expressing her views on diplomacy, the media, and Russia's place in the world. Maria, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Do you use the same words, regime, for American administration?
What would you prefer we use?
I don't know. I ask you, what was your motivation?
Well, you tell me what you would prefer us to use.
I think that if a president is elected by the people of his country, it's not about being a regime, it's about a democracy.
Well, let's talk about the reason you're here in New York. You spoke at the UN for the need for a global fight against the rise of fake news. And Russia has called out mainstream media organizations like the New York Times, the BBC, and CNN as promulgating fake news reports. So how do you define fake news?
We were suffering from fake news for years, probably even decades. And, you know, I used to work here in the United States, in New York, Manhattan, as a spokesperson for Russian mission to the United Nations. That was 2005 up to 2008. And when I arrived in New York, that was my probably first time long-term stay in a Western country. I was so much surprised because what I saw, especially in the media, and the media approach to Russia and Russian people and Russia as a state. And after some time, I just came to such a conclusion that here in the United States, you have this policy of zero good news about Russia. Because, for example, in Moscow, in, I don't know, St. Petersburg, in Russia itself, in our media, Russian-speaking media, Russian media, we have millions of news, millions of pieces of news about United States, about each piece of your life. Arts, science, I don't know, sports, good news, bad news, whatever you want. You can understand American people looking and watching and listening to Russian media. But here in the United States, I cannot find anything about Russia which can obviously present an image of my country, of our country, to American people.
I understand your point, but negative stories about Russia or a lack of positive stories about Russia, that does not necessarily mean it's fake. Is it
that was the period.
Is it just, Maria,
Yeah.
Reports that you think are negative or that you don't like, or do you believe they're factually inaccurate?
You're absolutely right, because I was talking about a period so-called before Obama. That was like a lack of positive or just neutral news from Russia. Only bad things like terrorist attacks, corruption, and that's it. But actually, there were no such massive attack of fake news. But under Obama administration, we faced absolutely different approach to Russia. It was sort of attempt to destroy bilateral relation in general. And so lots of fake news appeared.
So are you saying that the Obama administration is responsible for disseminating fake news about Russia?
I'm not sure that administration itself, but the period of Obama administration and the approach of Obama administration to Russia definitely showed absolutely negative approach to my country, to our country.
Let's talk about the election. Let me read to you a paragraph from a declassified U.S. intelligence community assessment that was released in January. We assess Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election. Russia's goals were to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. We further assess Putin and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump. We have high confidence in these judgments. How do you respond to that?
When I hear these words like we have high confidence, yes, I think that your high, not your, of course, but the high confidence should be based on evidence. And we would like to have this evidence. And to my mind, what we're watching here is just a very strong struggle between some sort of politicians and political groups within the United States, which are using all sorts of motivations. It's U.S. entire policy. And unfortunately, the whole world and foreign policy, it became a part of U.S. entire policy.
Do you think that Vladimir Putin and the Russian government prefer Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton for president?
We were very obvious with American elections, with European elections, with elections all over the world. It's not our business. And we underlined it many times before U.S. elections. Now you know that French people, France is holding their presidential campaign. The most popular question for me from French journalists, from American journalists, who you are supporting. Do you support this candidate? Do you support that candidate? And we absolutely clear, 100% clear on that. We do not support candidates for foreign elections. It's not our business at all. Trump, Hillary Clinton, others, they are not Russian candidates. They're not Russian presidents. They're United States candidates. And we were absolutely clear on this.
But clearly...
But absolutely, for sure, I can say that I think in Russia people were a little bit tired from this policy of demonizing Russia, which was supported by Hillary Clinton. That I can tell you for sure. Just ordinary people were so much tired of hearing Russia is that, Russia is bad, Russia is whatever you want during her campaign. That I can prove. Yes, that is absolutely true. People were absolutely, I don't know, is it possible to say sick and tired of it?
Having said that, wouldn't Russia have a vested interest, even though you're asserting that it's none of their business or none of Russia's business, these elections? But doesn't this country have your country, Maria, have a vested interest in certain candidates that will either make Russia more powerful or have a better, or usher in an era of better relations with your country?
Do you believe that, for example, Mr. Trump is thinking how to make Russia more powerful? Are you serious?
He may be thinking about how to improve relations with Russia.
But this is
repeatedly
normal
during the course of the campaign.
But this is normal because wise presidents, they are improving relationship with people and nations and states.
Not if they disagree wholeheartedly with their policies.
But not making it worse, even if you do not agree with it. This is the plot of diplomacy. This is about diplomacy, all about this. When you do not agree with somebody, it doesn't mean that you have to conquer the state or to bomb these people. You have to improve relationship. You have to improve the situation. But just, I think, to my mind, this is obvious.
The speculation is that Russia would prefer Marine Le Pen win the French presidential elections because it would further destabilize the EU and NATO, and as a result, strengthen Russia. What is your reaction to that assessment?
You know, I can just one more time repeat that people who are elected as foreign presidents, they are, first of all, about their own people, probably about their own interests, about their own political parties' interests, but not about interests of other states. Don't you think so?
Okay, let's move on. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said U.S.-Russia relationships were at a low point after his meeting with President Putin, and he said, quote, "There is a low level of trust between our two countries. The world's two foremost nuclear powers cannot have this kind of relationship." Do you agree that it is at a low point, and who do you blame for that?
Absolutely, very low point. I do agree. and we made so much statements on that we have somehow to improve the relations just in the interest of our two people, in the interest of business, economy, policy, politics.
But how did it get so bad so quickly? Because there was hope during the campaign, I know, by the Russian people, some of whom I spoke to in Red Square when I was there in December, that the relationship would improve under President Trump. What went wrong in your view?
That was the policy which was chosen by President Obama. That was his course, that was his
But now
ideology.
we have President Trump, and things are at a low point, as you say. What happened?
But as I understand, he's just starting.
Right, but
Just give him a chance.
but what happened? Give me your assessment, because if they are at a low point, something happened in this period of time.
Probably that has sort of connection with President Obama ideology of Washington is dominating the world. Probably that was the point. I don't know. You should ask them, because actually we did nothing to make our relationship worse, because we are very interested to develop a relationship in different fields with the United States.
Was it the U.S. airstrikes against Syria that, in your view, damaged the potential for an improvement in relations between the two countries?
You mean the latest one?
Yes.
That was something really unacceptable, because that was against international law, first of all, because that has no any military or political sense. I mean, all the strikes, because they brought situation just to nowhere.
Using chemical weapons is also against international law.
You know what Russia said the very first day of that, when this tragedy happened, that the international inspectors and international specialists on chemical weapon, which were the work of whom were established by UN, should directly go to the region just to explore what happened and to bring the materials, the information back to the Security Council or to the special organizations within UN. And that was our call for international society from the very first days. But our Western colleagues were insisting not to send inspectors to the place of the tragedy, but to send them, you know where? To the airport where Syrian jets were located, just to expect something there. And the most ridiculous thing that happened, that after all these strikes, I mean U.S. strikes happened, and the target of these strikes was this military airport. So from the very beginning, they asked and they were insisting of sending experts just to explore what happened in the airport. And in a couple of days, they bombed this airport. So there is no chance to understand what happened in the airport. And that was the idea of the United States.
Do you believe
that is really ridiculous? That's something we really did not understand.
Do you believe Bashar al-Assad is responsible for using chemical weapons against his own people, his Air Force?
I think that there are specialists, there are special people who have to deal with this situation. Not you, not me, not journalists, not politicians, not business people, not teachers or students, but specialists who are just in charge of giving reports to the international community what has happened. And that's what we were proposing, and that's what we are insisting on, just to bring a group of specialists to Syria and let them do their job and let them bring all the information back to the Security Council.
So you're suggesting there was a rush to judgment, that Bashar al-Assad was responsible for that?
Our decisions, our conclusions should be based on real evidence, not to let the situation with Colin Powell and Iraq story be back on track.
If an investigation...
Because that was the worst thing that happened to the Security Council, to United States, to the Middle East region. I mean, all this thing about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Because actually, as we understood now, there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That was, as some people say, a huge mistake. I think that was not a mistake that was done on purpose when Colin Powell brought a piece of this, white tube to the Security Council, falsing and spreading actually the lie.
Who do you think was responsible for those chemical weapons? And if, in fact, an investigation in Syria, and if an investigation shows that Bashar al-Assad was, would you have supported the airstrikes?
Yeah, we made lots of statements that, and actually we made it not the latest time, but through several months and actually years, calling for Security Council to take a look on what is going on in the region where terrorists, ISIL and other terrorist groups were using chemical weapons, not only in Syria, but also in Iraq. And nobody was interested in that. To my mind, the main idea of the West is just Assad must go. That is the concept. That is something the Western world is focused on. Probably do not have any desire to somehow manage with the situation in a political track. Just Assad must go, and this is it. And this is it's not the way out. This is the dead end.
Let me ask you about Chechnya, if I could. There have been disturbing reports in the international media. Hold on 2 seconds.
No. This is not my issue. I'm not a specialist in that.
But you can respond. Let me ask you the question. There have been reports that the government in Chechnya is rounding up and arresting gay men.
I'm sorry.
Some have reportedly been tortured. At least 3 have died. What is Russia doing about it?
Holding an investigation, as normal countries doing in these cases.
Let me read you a passage from the New York Times editorial board.
I just asked you. This is not my field.
You can't speak about Chechnya?
No, my field is international relationship.
And you can't talk about something that's going on internally in your country?
I did. Russia started started investigation.
Let me read you this op-ed in the New York Times. This abominable crime by a Russian republic and its reprehensible cover-up warrant a strong response from Moscow and the international community. That would be a stretch for the Russian government, which is denying that there is evidence of any crimes and has sought to keep its own gay population invisible. Can you respond to that? Because this is about Moscow and the Russian government.
I just did.
And all you can say is there is an investigation underway.
I think it's the most important to have an investigation. Don't you think so?
Tell us what the investigation, who's investigating, and what has been found, if anything, thus far.
Just told you all information I have. If you need some more details, I'll be back with more details. It's, I'm the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My field is international relationship, and if you need something which you are so much focused, I will definitely bring you more information.
Let me ask you about Ukraine. Do you feel comfortable talking about Ukraine?
I feel comfortable talking about everything I'm sort of a specialist in.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Ukraine. Secretary Tillerson said after his meeting with Minister Lavrov that while the U.S. wants to improve relations with Russia, Russia's actions in eastern Ukraine remain an obstacle. Is there a circumstance in which you can see some kind of compromise here or shift in Russian policies to pave the way for improved relations?
It's not about compromising or compromises. It's about fulfilling the Minsk agreements and realizing Minsk agreements. We have our roadmap on the table. It's full, it's comprehensive, it's very objective, it's a document which has an international support, and all parties involved should do the only thing, just realize, fulfill Minsk agreements.
Let me ask you about North Korea, if I could.
To implement it, yeah.
Russia vetoed a UN Security Council proposal to condemn nuclear tests in North Korea, a plan the U.S. says all the other council members approved, including China. Do you approve, or does Russia approve of North Korea conducting nuclear tests?
We are absolutely for all Security Council resolutions which bans nuclear tests. And the question is not for Russia. The question should go for United States, why they reject this mechanism of improving the situation in the Korean Peninsula. We have this six-party talks, negotiation process, which has some history, which is sometimes brings good results, sometimes does not bring any results. But we should follow this. We should use it.
But you could have stood in solidarity with all these other countries at this very, very tense time in North Korea when they're testing these nuclear weapons, and they would be a significant threat not only to the region but ultimately to the entire world.
Each time, unfortunately, you do not follow the statements of Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russian administration, but each time we made a special statement on these issues, a strong one, very strong statements. And we're not only making statements, but we also use our diplomacy efforts and diplomacy mechanism to resolve the situation. And we also work with all our colleagues within Security Council. But, you know, we should use all the diplomatic efforts and all the possibilities of international law which we have on the table.
In closing, I wanted to ask you about Edward Snowden. He is...
I've never met him.
But he's one of America's most wanted fugitives. As you know, he lives in Moscow. Will he be staying there indefinitely?
I think that is something that he will decide himself. I've never met him. I've never talked to him. I don't know. It's up to him to decide. He's just a human being. He's a person, and he has his own will to decide where he will stay.
Is there any circumstances under which Russia would extradite him back to the United States or force him to leave Russia, period?
I think that I've already answered your question, that he will decide on his own whether to stay in Russia or to go whatever he wants, United States or other countries. That will be his own decision.
Well, if he comes here, obviously he will be tried.
This is not
your area.
This is not
of
my
absolutely.
This is not my field. This is you should talk to some experts here in the United States.
Well,
you know, you asked me so much about Russian-American relationship. Of course, we have lack of trust between two countries, between two peoples, and this is very unfortunate because we have so much in common. And I will show you one example. Yesterday, I saw lots of news in your media about your woman cosmonaut.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Which was congratulated by your president. And her pictures, her photos were spread all over the internet. Those pictures could be like a symbol of Russian-American relationship in the future. You know why? Because her space suit, which she was wearing, is made in Russia. I think that is the best possibility for us to communicate and to cooperate.
Maria Zakharova, thank you very much for talking with us today.
Thank you.